Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This video is about time. For me, the most radical thing that we can do as individuals and as a society to heal ourselves is to reforge our notion of time, to change it from something that has a very linear path from birth to death, usually, back to something that is much more circular, much more cyclical. And in particular, an Islamic perspective on how we might do that, based around the idea of what a day is, what a month is, and what a year is, and how changing those seemingly very fixed and fundamental notions can give us another way in to time-space itself. But before we get into the details, some caveats. First, I see myself as an agent. Like all human beings, I have an ability to act, free will of some description or another. Second, in my worldview, there is a higher authority, knowledge, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. There is something beyond me, that is better than me, that is bigger than me, that is purer than me, that is merciful. And I will never know that in its entirety, and that to me is magical, that I am limited. It is freedom in a very profound sense. Third caveat is that I do not have any definitive answers at all. This is not a 10-step program to achieving your goals. This is not going to get you all of those things that we want. This is a record, a testimony, some data of experiments or from experiments that I've been playfully and less playfully running for years. It's a video lab book, if you like. What is a day and how do we notice a day? And in the Hijri calendar or framework, the day actually starts at sunset rather than midnight. And the night time, the darkness, comes at the beginning of the day. So what is a day and how do we use tools to help us understand the day? And one of the reasons I moved to Highland is that I wanted to see more sunrises and more sunsets. And I have. And it's changed my life in ways that I can't really articulate or compute. I just feel better. I hear the birds. I see the light. It just makes more sense to me, knowing what day it is, and knowing that what day it is isn't really dependent on a calendar that somebody else has constructed. What is a month? I have to say, I don't know what September is or what January is or why January starts on the January the 1st the way that it does. Why is December not the 10th month? And presumably that's something to do with the ego of a couple of Roman emperors. And my astronomy is nowhere near good enough to say that the constellations are now telling us that January has started. I like being able to know what month it is. It locates me, and I use a much simpler system. I use a lunar system, or I try to. A few years now, I have been running off the Hijri calendar as much as possible, and that means using the moon as a visible tool. So actively going to look for the new moon, the crescent of the new moon, the hilal, and that's due in a couple of days' time. Being aware that it is not a fixed thing and you either see it or you don't see it. And about 50% of the time you do and 50% of the time you don't. So there is an uncertainty involved, which I'm happy to accept. And that just gives me a different perspective. So this is what my month looks like. And you can see that it's a modified Muji diary. It has been changed to show the Arabic or Hijri days of the week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Jumu'ah and Sabt or Sabbath. The dates on the Gregorian side are only written in green, which represent the Fridays. There is a little earth symbol which represents a solstice or an equinox, so you get that one every 3 months. And then you've got the moon phases, which I use timeanddate.com to get accurate data for. There aren't that many things recorded. Journeys are usually recorded. Hosting events are usually recorded. People coming to visit usually recorded. And it does give me a decent overview of what the month is going to look like, inshallah. A year. What is a year? How does having a lunar year change our practice compared to having a solar year? It means that things come forwards, if you like, in time, so that a Ramadan is not always in the same part of the solar year. And having grown up in the West and using a Gregorian calendar for a good 45 years of my life, almost exclusively, it's been really interesting to try and put that all away and really build the whole year around Ramadan and Eid al-Adha. And that has led to some friction, some kind of tension, because I don't quite know what it is when it is Ramadan as intuitively as I may have done the month of September, for example. It does change, and I've been getting more comfortable with it. And now my year, I think, in my head at least, certainly revolves around, well, what's Ramadan? Where's Ramadan? What's the purpose of that for us in our lives? And everything else is built onto that. So this is what my current annual calendar, if you can call it that, looks like for 1446, up there in Arabic in the top right hand corner. And the Soviets used a pencil. It's just like a design mantra that I quite enjoy. The layout is, as you can see, a series of circles, each representing a moon or a month. In the center you have the green rebalancing moon of Ramadan, and the small blue circles are the solstices and the equinoxes. And at the top of the screen you have a segment cut out for Eid al-Adha, and the other things you can see are the shaded moons, which was meant to be the time for our kitchen build, which is overrun, and a little aeroplane icon, which is our daughter coming and going from our home, and the little yellow piece of paper is our current time. So we've had various iterations of the annual chart, including one that went all the way around the room and one that was in the shape of a snake. So this video didn't quite turn out how I expected. It is slightly more unfinished than I had hoped. Apologies. In the spirit of working to the moon phases, or being in resonance with the moon phases, I'm going to leave it here. Inshallah, I will come back to some of the stuff I was talking about here in more detail. But in the meantime, may the celestial rhythms of the universe be resonating with you and yours. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.